We are. Hello everyone. I am Sandra Teresa Davenport. And I have this big smile on my face because I'm doing something that people don't normally do. When they're launching something, I'm having my first time on the air. My first time on the air was Saturday night, May 17th from 7 to 10. And I had my first time, my maiden voyage, my debut into online ministry. It was so much fun. And here I am now doing another debut. Imagine, I'm having my first time in virtual ministry. Oh, how much fun is that? So anyhow, as I said, my name is Sandra Teresa Davenport. You know, I have a few things here in front of me, a spiral binder, a spiral notebook, which I think everybody should always have on a black ink pen, and a timer, because time is very important. I don't want to overrun it. Because when I was studying down at the ITC, they told us that people stop listening to you after 15 minutes. I don't want you to stop listening to me. I don't want to bore you. But I am the founding minister of Living Well Ministries. And when I did my first debut, my opening scripture was Genesis 1, in the beginning. And what I said that night was that in the beginning, generally when somebody says in the beginning, they're thinking about the creation of the world, this Bible story. But you know, there's a beginning in every moment, depending on how you're feeling. If you feel like starting something new, if you feel like restarting something old, if you just feel like making some adjustments, there's always a beginning. So that was my opening, and this is my opening right here, once again, because we're beginning something new. I have never been on TV before, and I certainly haven't ever been on international TV. It's so exciting. But most exciting because today I had another opportunity. So I did two new things today. When Archbishop asked me, do you have the official name of your business? And I said, yes, it's the Health Reverend. Well, it just happened today, just this morning. I was thinking, I need to make some new business cards. And then I said, you know, Living Well Ministries, that's the name of my ministry, but my title, Minister of Health and Wellness, that seems kind of hokey. Let's see if I can get a little closer to the point. So I said, okay, how about the Health Minister? And then I heard Archbishop's voice again in my head. She says, if you're going to do it, do it. And when you hear God say something, that's the time to do it. So then I said, okay, go ahead. Embrace your full calling. And this time when my 12th grade class president called me Reverend, I wouldn't have to stop him. So the name came to me, the Health Reverend. And I think that considering my work is in alternative modes of achieving health, that the Health Reverend is going to serve me quite well. Now, how I came to be oriented in health is probably has three different parts to it, but the first part of it is that my two younger sisters gave me a book on cleansing. They were doing all this fasting and carrying on, and I just decided that I wanted to do what they did, so I asked them for one of their books. And the book they gave me was entitled The Mucus-Less Diet Cleansing System by Dr. Arnold Ehret, E-H-R-E-T. That I remember as the first book that I read on the topic. And then as luck would have it, as God would have it, I continued to read those books because it was just so very interesting to me. And then, of course, I'm always reading something anyway. So I want to give the first credit to my falling into this to my two younger sisters now. I also, you know, I have a sibling for every occasion. I have five great sisters and one terrific brother. So I have a sibling for every occasion. So I give the first credit for me even coming in this direction to them. Thereafter, I got very, very concerned when I started to learn about disease and the process of disease and how the prevention of disease is a very simple and personal matter. What you eat, when they start telling you that you are what you eat, I don't know exactly what they meant, but I can tell you that it's true. So if you're eating what we call in the alternative business, we call frankenfoods. If you're eating a lot of frankenfoods and you find yourself starting to feel and sound and move around like Frankenstein, you shouldn't be surprised, because frankenfoods, let's take an example, comes in a box, comes in a can, comes in a bag. They did not come out of the ground in a bag. So that's the thing you should look for. Now, I want you to also know some of the other texts that I've used in addition to the NRSV, New Revised Standard Version Bible. That's the one that we used at the end of the Denominational Theological Center. The ITC down there in Atlanta, Georgia, part of the Atlanta University Center. And I graduated from the Morehouse School of Religion. But that's the Bible that we use, the NRSV. Beginning with that, as I said, I started with Genesis 1:29. And my book, which you'll be able to find on CreateSpace on May 31st, Independence Day, which is also the next time that I'll be on the radio show. So beginning is Genesis 1:29, where it makes it very clear that man, the highest level of the last thing that was created during the creation, was to live on the trees and the herbs and the seed-bearing fruits and every green thing that there was. And now, that doesn't mean that you shouldn't eat any meat, but that what I've concluded is this, that the foundation of a good diet, a good health plan, has to be greens. It has to come from the orchard, it has to come from the garden. So with that in mind, that gives us a very good foundation for moving forward. Mm-hmm. So then Genesis 1:29 is kind of a pyramid that I have built my work on. Genesis 1:29 is at the bottom. On the left side is Genesis 6:10, which says that the number of our days shall be 120. Now I know everybody knows and everybody says and everybody believes and preaches that our time on earth shall be 80 years and 10. Well, I like the 120 better, because 80 years and 10, frankly, is not long from today. It won't be long before I reach that mark, and I'll just probably be hitting my stride by then. So I like the 120-year stretch better. So now what we want to do, Living Well Ministries just simply wants to be sure that every time we teach, every time we talk, every time we preach, every time we do a conference or a workshop, we are indeed handing you something that is going to help you live a long and full life and go to the grave without grief. Because the tagline of Living Well Ministries is helping people live well. And living well has a lot of different implications. But for me, as far as we are concerned with Living Well Ministries, it means living well physically and socially and financially and culturally. And it is our goal, it is our duty to find ways to help that happen. So that's how we started. So we continue with reading. And you know, I heard a gentleman talk the other night. He was Dennis Kimbrough, a writer. Dennis Kimbrough wrote a book entitled Think and Get Rich, A Black Choice. And I saw him doing a presentation, and he was talking about the importance of reading. And he said, readers are leaders. Well, I took that and I twisted it around just ever so slightly, without his permission, of course. And what I've come to is that leaders are learners. Because I realized when I was talking on Saturday night, when I was talking and handing out this information, even for myself, I kept coming up with questions with the need for more information. So if someone should call me and ask me something that I don't know, oh Lord, I don't want to have to say, I don't know, I'll get back to you. That's just not good. When I was teaching the 3rd grade, I never did allow my students to say, I don't know. I said, well, I don't know is not an answer, so I couldn't do that. So leaders have to learn. I have to always continue to learn. And I'm really, really grateful that I was born with the innate love for reading. My 1st grade teacher, Ms. Rosson, she told me that when I came to school, she didn't have to teach me to read. She said the only thing she taught me was compound words. And she said she showed it to me one time, and I said, oh, and after that, I was on my way. I credit my older sister with teaching me to read, although she says that she didn't, but I just give her credit for it. My older sister is a professor of literature at Stillman College. So I have to keep learning, and I have to keep looking for some new information, because new information does change in every area of experience. Information changes moment to moment, and then what I want to be able to do is just hand you enough information to make your own decision. If I give you enough information, enough of the right information, enough of information that has some value to it. Whatever you decide to use is going to be used to your benefit. So I had to go from that first book to where I am now, and as I said Saturday night, I feel like by now I've come back full circle to the book that says the most important thing that you can put in your diet is fat. Well, for me, fat is very important, and in the next 24 hours, I'm going to post to my blog spot some information on that very topic. The title of my blog spot is theredpodium.blogspot.com. I settled on that title because one other great interest that I have, which is thrifting. So I bought a white podium at a thrift store, and I painted it red. Now, a can of red spray paint is an interior decorator's best friend, believe me. So anyhow, I painted it red, and I started to envision myself standing behind that podium, holding forth some information. And so I settled on that topic for my blog. And I can be reached at that blog spot because I also, of course, have an email address there. So I continue to read, and I'll tell you that all the books that I've read, if I had to settle on one, it would be a book entitled Back to Eden. It was originally published in 1939 by Jethro Kloss, K-L-O-S-S. He was an herbalist. He wasn't a writer or a doctor. He didn't call himself a doctor. He was an herbalist, and he happened upon it simply by doing what he did, growing herbs and using them. And then he established a reputation among his community as a person who could help you if you got sick and you couldn't get to the doctor, or if you had gotten to the doctor and what the doctor did for you failed, then Dr. Kloss was the man for the job. I learned a great deal from him. I think it was his book that finally convinced me that this was an avenue for me. This was something that I just didn't put down, because he didn't leave anything out. Once in a while, I have looked at other herbal texts, and I would see much more information on one herb or the other that I didn't see in Dr. Kloss's book. But that doesn't matter because I still stand by him. When I started to look at the use of food therapies, juice therapies, herbal therapies, massage therapies, and all those things, then I started to realize that the world was full of people who did those things. Not only that, the world was equally full of people who needed those services. Right about that time, I came to be associated with a woman named Marie Sternhardt, who was a former emergency room nurse, oncology nurse specifically. And she also was a cancer survivor. How she survived cancer was through juice therapy, the juice of fresh carrots, squeezed on a daily basis and consumed every hour on the hour. For 2 weeks, at which time Marie was functioning again like a healthy person. And I'm sure somewhere, wherever she is, she probably drank some carrot juice today. And that's been about 15 years now. So I had to pay special attention to that. The next step was that you see, I still live in the house that my mother grew up in. So that means that anybody, at least 90% of the people who drive past that house every day, knows me. And they knew my mother, and they knew my grandparents. And they certainly know all of my siblings. And so there was a friend of mine from my early teenage years who had become a pastor, Richard Haynes. Richard Haynes, pastor of Salem Baptist Church right up the road there in Blackthorn. So Richard was speaking about the importance of praying, but also listening. After you talk to God, you should listen to God, is what Richard was saying. And he said people pray and then they get up off their knees and get in the bed so fast that they don't know what God was going to say to them. Mm-hmm. So I remember quite clearly one of those nights when I was still living with Marie, and I did that very thing. I got on my knees and I prayed, and I got up and got back in the bed, and I said, oh, I'm going to do what Richard said. So I got back on my knees, and I heard very clearly, teach and preach my word. And I said, oh dear, really? I said, okay. Then what? The next instruction was to study at the ITC. Now, never in my life had I ever thought of going into ministry. Never in my life I'd ever thought of studying at a seminary. But I do absolutely love to learn. So I set about making plans. And I can still remember the horrible, the disappointment that I got when the first time I went to the seminary, and I couldn't register because all the classes clashed with my work schedule. And I had to wait till the following fall. I was so off. It seemed like the fall was so far off. Well, I've already been out of the seminary now for 7 years. And so time goes by pretty fast once you get started. But getting started is a big thing for me. And this is an exciting moment because of that, because now I am standing on the threshold of a new beginning. The doors of life are open wide. Now it looks like I'm finally winning, all because love is on my side. Now, if we were in a gathering, if there was a room full of people, I would say, raise your hand if you know where that came from, if you know what song those words came from, and you'll get a door prize. But since we're not in a gathering, if you still know, send me an email, and I will send you a present. Don't go searching for it online. You got to know it for yourself. So that's one of the great pleasures of memory, precious memories, is that I can remember that song so well. I can almost remember when I first heard it. But I want to just tell you a little bit more about Living Well Ministries and why I'm so proud to be the Health Reverend. One reason I'm so proud to do it is because for so long I resisted it. Well, then I went to the seminary, and Dr. Ann Wimberly, the person who's going to sign off on my master's thesis, she says, you know, what you described sounds more like a consultant. I said, okay then, I can be a church consultant, that's no problem. Somehow or another, I fell into the attention of a minister down in Macon, Reverend Smith, whose first name leaves me. But anyhow, he was the pastor at Macedonian Baptist Church out on Eisenhower Parkway. He needed someone to come and kind of fluff up his health ministry. They were already in place, they just needed a little bit of life put into them. So I went down to Macon to the Macedonian Baptist Church twice a month, and I just had the greatest time. You know, they were interested in what I was teaching them, and they always wanted me to bring them something new or some new fruit from the farmer's market or something. And we did really good work down there. And so I took off after that. I didn't pursue it. Don't ask me why. There's some reason, I'm sure, but I didn't pursue it. But I can tell you that those times of not pursuing it are long gone. And from here, this point forward, I would never not pursue it. So that's one thing that happened. Now, the other thing that happened for me was I really started to pay attention to people and their health. I started to pay attention to, I should say, the outward indications of health, which are skin tone, body mass, or what you call it, body presence, is the way a person moves through space, if they limp, if they walk with a straight gait, if they have good posture. All those things are outward indications of health. And as sad as it is to say, at the seminary where I was, let us say that we had about 700 or 800 people. The majority of us were under 30 years old. The majority of us were also female, but the majority of us simply were not in good health. There was just no way around it. And so I started to put together some information that eventually found its way into a little tiny publication called Arise and Walk. Now, the original title of that book was The African Americans Christians Guide to Good Health. Well, my 12th grade senior class president, Michael Shirley, told me that it sounded like I only wanted black people to read it, and he felt sure white people could benefit from it. So my third favorite scripture comes from John, the story of the guy sitting by the pool, John 5, 1 through 11. And in the course of a class called exegesis, where I had to go and look for some meaning to all these various biblical terms, then I came across this. Okay, this is my favorite one. But because the guy never did say, yes, I want to be healed, or no, I'll just stay sick. He never did say yes or no. He just kept coming up with excuses. I notice sometimes if somebody is saying that they have high blood pressure, for example, or they want to lose some weight, or any number of different things that people will say about health. If I offered something that they could do, some really simple thing, they would always come back and tell me why it wouldn't happen. Well, I can't stop using this medicine because it's a prescription, or I can't just start eating differently because I'm just naturally heavy, and then I can't, so there was always something wrong with what I was offering. Meantime, however, their joints kept aching, their heads kept aching, and their waistline kept growing. So I thought that perhaps if I put something together, I could just hand them. They would look at it every once in a while, and maybe after enough repetition of these things, they'd be willing to take a chance on it. So I therefore published a small booklet called Arise and Walk, a handy little booklet to help people get well. And it is founded on those three principles. The fact that we have everything that we need in the produce section. Not to say that you can't eat fried chicken. I don't tell people what not to do. I just give them information that will help them. So we have what to eat. We have a promise of 120 years. And we have a very simple edict at the end, which says decide whether you want to stay sick or you want to get well. And if you do want to get well, then we can help you. I really enjoy this topic. I don't ever need any preparation for it, and I'll launch into it in Walmart, at the grocery store, wherever I happen to find somebody who'll listen to me. I'll do it, and I will be more than thrilled to hear from you. I can be reached, as I said, on my blog spot, theredpodium.blogspot.com, or you can call my virtual office at 706-768-4714. And it is important for me also to tell you that I am here by the great graces of the Archbishop Abrams, who hails from the fair city of Fayetteville, North Carolina, and My King's Network. And I hope that you will remember to join me on the 31st of May and every second Saturday thereafter from 7 to 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The dial-in number is 512, no, I'm sorry, that's not the right number. Call me at 706-768-4714. I'll give you the number. I'll also post the number on my blog spot. At this point, if we were in a setting, in a group setting, I would ask if anyone wanted to ask me any questions, but I will ask you some questions right now. The first question I want to ask you is, do you read the labels on the food that you buy off the shelf? If you do read the labels, do you know what those words mean? For example, do you know the difference in trans fat, saturated fat, unsaturated fat? Because I don't. Do you know what hydrogenated oil is? Do you remember the last time you read a label? Do you remember how many ingredients it had on it? Like if you bought a loaf of bread, do you realize how many different things you get for $2.95? If you buy a loaf of bread, you get a whole lot more ingredients than just bread and just a little bit of flour, a little bit of salt, a little bit of sugar, which is really just about all it takes to make a loaf of bread. Okay, I want to ask you another question. Do you know what the difference is in yogurt? The main difference in frozen yogurt and ice cream? Okay. Do you know what the main difference is in milk and soy milk? Are you aware of any reasons not to eat soy products? These are the types of questions that you have to start with. For me, asking questions is always a good way to start something, okay? Let me ask you another question. Do you know how many different dyes there are in a bottle of that Orange Crush soda? Do you know what dye does once it gets inside your body? Do you know one really easy way to lower blood pressure? And these are not necessarily test questions by any means, but they are things that if you think about, And if you say, no, I don't, then it'll perhaps get you started to where you'll say, yes, I know what those things are. And do you know the difference in deep frying and stir frying, for example? Do you know the benefit, if there is any benefit, to using olive oil as opposed to using vegetable oil? Are you aware of the construction of margarine? Are you aware of the difference in margarine versus butter? And you know, margarine has very, very often for a long time been pushed forward as being a healthier alternative than butter. You know, that's something that you ought to know, because you might have some margarine in the refrigerator right now. Those are the things those are the places where we start. And getting started is the biggest thing in wherever we're going to go, whether you're going to make a new beginning today or a new beginning tomorrow, or whatever it is that you're going to do. Getting started is the number one thing. So I hope that I have given you enough information to want you to get started. And I also hope that I have given you enough information for you to want to get some more information, which is where we come in, where I come in. And so what we do, I have various different approaches. I can come and give you a workshop for a day, 2 days, half a day, or I can give you a 3-day workshop, much more interactive, and I can give you a revival where we sing and carry on. Singing. Now, when I do my radio show, I do sing, but I'm not singing right now. But I will tell you that my favorite song, one of my favorite opening songs, is Harvest for the World by the Isley Brothers. We don't have anything better to do, I promise you, than to prepare for the times that we're yet to live, whatever that means. We don't have anything better to do with our time than to learn how to do it. And I would be very, very happy to help you to do that. I am Sandra Teresa Davenport, the Health Reverend. I am visiting you from the foothills of the Smoky Mountains in Habersham County, Northeast Georgia. And I thank you very much for your time. Namaste.